Welcome back to Puerto Rico Life. My name is Jeffrey Holst, and today we're going to talk about 5 things, five, not four, but 5 things that you need to think about before you rent a place in Puerto Rico. So, as many of you know, if you follow this channel, Puerto Rico Life, which if you do, I would love it if you would subscribe and also put the notification bell down below there. Ring it so that you get notified every time I have a video. So 5 things, as you know, I've been planning on moving to Puerto Rico. It's right now as I record this video, it is October the 16th. My goal is to move by the end of the year, which means I have about 2.5 months to get to Puerto Rico. So anyway, now I don't have a particular need to get there January 1. I could be December 1. I could be January 15. None of that really matters that much. But the point is, it's crunch time for me. And since I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I have to try to figure out how to rent a place in Puerto Rico or buy a place if I choose. That's a little bonus. That wasn't on my list of 5, but if you think about it, that's the very first thing you have to think about is, do you want to rent or do you want to buy? So when I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to rent or buy, my ultimate decision came down to I wasn't really sure. As you know from watching some of my previous videos, my wife, Mrs. Puerto Rico Life, would like to live in Rincon. I personally would like to live in Isla Verde. So we debated this quite a bit. Now, Mrs. Puerto Rico Life is planning on doing the Appalachian Trail. So stay tuned for more information about that. She may even have a channel where she shares about her experiences. I'm not going to promise that because it's up to her whether she wants to do that or not. But regardless, she's going to be doing the Appalachian Trail starting in March. The trail takes 6 months. It's 2,190 miles. So during that 6 months, I'll be primarily by myself. And so we concluded that it made a lot of sense for me to live where I want to live versus where she wants to live. So Isla Verde or somewhere else in the San Juan area or Carolina is the location that we've chosen. But anyway, because we're not sure where we want to finally end up, we made the decision that we wanted to rent for 1 year, possibly longer, before buying. And it might be that I'll end up buying 2 months after I get there, while she's still out in the woods somewhere climbing mountains. But it seems unlikely. I think I'll probably wait for her input on that one. And another piece of bonus information, you should always listen to your spouse. It makes your life so much easier. Anyway, all right, so without any further ado, 5 things, and I should have made banners for these so they could scroll across the bottom of the screen, and I kind of feel bad that I didn't, but 5 things that you need to think about before you rent or buy in Puerto Rico. So the very first thing I've already alluded to, and that is where do you want to buy? What part of the island do you want to live on? See, most people think, at least most mainlanders think Puerto Rico is a small little island in the Caribbean or maybe in the North Atlantic or South Atlantic or something. But the point is they don't think of it as a big place. But the reality, if you've been following this channel, you know, is that it is actually a pretty big island. You can live in Fajardo, you could live in Ponce, you could live in Mayagüez, you could live in Rincon or Isabela or San Juan or somewhere else. There's tons and tons of places that you could live. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to each place, and I'm going to go into those briefly here. The West Coast, like Rincon, Mayagüez, is going to be a little bit more laid back than being in the city, but you're going to have a few less amenities. You're going to have more difficult time getting access to the airports. Now, some people tell me you can fly very easily from Mayagüez to San Juan to SJU, and then from there you can get anywhere, or you could fly from Aguadilla, which is just north of Rincon. So you have some options of flights, but you don't have the same kind of multiple flights a day, like many flights a day that you have out of San Juan. SJU, you can fly just about anywhere in the Caribbean. You can fly direct to Charlotte, Atlanta, Detroit, Dallas. Lots of options where you can get direct flights right out of San Juan. So for me, being close to San Juan was a real big issue. Now, some people I've met recently, in fact, I was in New Orleans over the weekend, and I met some people who live in Rincon, and they said that I'm worried about nothing. In fact, one guy I met lives in Rincon, lived in Isla Verde before he moved to Rincon. He spent a year in Isla Verde and moved to Rincon. And when I told him my plan, he said, just skip Isla Verde, go straight to Rincon. And I told him about Mrs. Puerto Rico Life being out on the trail, and he was like, you know what, you're right. You should hang out in Isla Verde for a year. You're going to love it. I loved it. But you'll probably end up hanging out with me in Rincon a year from now. So maybe that's the case. I don't know. The point is the island's big, and you need to think about where you want to live. So if you haven't ever been to Puerto Rico and you're thinking you want to move there, maybe you've heard that there's good tax advantages or whatever. And, I've done a whole video about why you shouldn't move just for tax advantages, and I'll put that up there. Above my head. But yeah, so I mean, whatever the reason that you might be thinking about moving to Puerto Rico, it's going to be really important that you explore the island first, which is why I've been to Puerto Rico 4 times this year. I spent a month in Puerto Rico in Condado, which is in the San Juan area, kind of in between Isla Verde and Old San Juan, where I want to live in Isla Verde. But Condado, very nice, but very, very touristy. I've looked at some properties there. Not sure that I want to live in Condado. And then, of course, there are other issues. So first is like the location. And then once you narrow down the location, you got to think about neighborhoods. So number 1 is location, and neighborhood is number 2. So number 1, location. What part of the island do you want to live on? The East Coast, the West Coast, Culebra. Maybe you want to live on an island off of the island, right? So Culebra or Vieques, islands off of the coast that you could live on. And then once you narrow down the general area, like say for me, San Juan, then you have to decide on the neighborhood. So San Juan has tons of great neighborhoods. You've got things like I said, Isla Verde, which is technically in Carolina over by the airport, not in San Juan. So before anyone jumps on me for getting my geography wrong, I know. But there's also all sorts of places in the greater San Juan area that are, very close proximity to San Juan. I learned recently that there's even a metro in San Juan that runs out to like Guaynabo and Bayamon and, from the financial district. So that's the thing. You can pick, do you want to live in Old San Juan, Condado, Santurce, whatever it might be. And it's the same thing if you pick Ponce as where you want to live, which is on the south side of the island. Do you want to live in the central part of Ponce? And I did a whole video about Ponce Centro right there, which is a great place to visit, but I don't think I want to live there because it's a little bit far from San Juan, about an hour by car, hour and 15 minutes maybe. But do you want to live, by the beach, right? That matters. So that's actually, sort of the third thing. It's related to location is amenities, right? So, even if you live in the mountains, you can have a swimming pool. It is possible, right? But you can't have a beach if you live in the mountains in the center of the country, or if you live right outside of the rainforest in El Yunque, you may or may not be on the East Coast and be able to be close to the ocean, or you might be closer to the mountainside of El Yunque. And so you can think about like, how close do you want to be to those things when you're looking at your location and neighborhood? But the third thing is amenities, right? So what's important to you? How important is a stable internet? If you're like me and you do a lot of your business over the internet, and maybe you're thinking about doing an export services business, or you just got to consult with your team back home, whatever it might be, back on the mainland, back in San Juan. Maybe you live in Rincon and your team's in San Juan. I don't know. But whatever your situation is, you may need really stable quality internet. So you need to think about that. What about power? How important is it to you that you always have power? Do you need a full building generator? Or for that matter, do you even want to be in a building with other people? Maybe you want to be in a house. So when you think about amenities, do you want to grow your own fruit? I mean, I don't, but maybe you do. I prefer to have somebody else take care of my swimming pool, but maybe you want a private swimming pool. So like, one of my friends is considering moving to Puerto Rico. She's looking at a house, and the house has a pool, and I have a pool in my house now, and it's a lot of work. I like the idea of being in a condo building in Isla Verde where someone else is taking care of my pool. What about building security? What about covered parking? What about parking in general? Do you care if you park on the street? Do you even want a car? I mean, if you live in Old San Juan, maybe you're just going to, take Ubers once in a while and spend the rest of the time on foot. Or if you live in the financial district, maybe you're going to take that metro I just learned about and Uber and walk around and not even own a car. So, there's all sorts of things you have to think about amenities wise, like are the utilities included? What are the HOA dues? is there a gym facility? I mean, I've looked at some buildings. I looked at a building in the financial district that's very new, tall, residential building, great sounding place. Um, but lots of amenities, but not on the ocean. And to me, that might be a deal killer. I haven't decided for sure, but I really do want to be by the ocean. One of the reasons I'm moving to Puerto Rico, as I've said in previous videos, is that I want to spend more time in the ocean. And so if I want to spend more time in the ocean, I'll have to think about that. So the third thing is amenities. So if we're reviewing, the first thing is location, the second thing is neighborhood, the third thing is amenities. And then the fifth thing or fourth thing is the budget. Like, how much do you want to spend? How much can you spend? If you're buying a house, do you want to spend 100,000 or do you want to spend 2 million? I mean, I've seen stuff listed for $10 million. Right now, that's way out of my budget, but it might not be out of yours. You need to think about that. So, or I've seen rentals everywhere from $500 a month in some smaller communities to some in Dorado that were renting for $40,000 a month. There's some in Calabria that were $40,000 a month. Like, think about that, $40,000 a month. Some people pay $40,000 per house. Maybe that's their budget. Other people pay $40,000 a month for a house, and it's just rent. It doesn't really matter, but whatever your budget is, you're really going to need to think about that. So the fourth thing you need to do is decide what you can afford to spend, and then look back at the neighborhood and location and amenities and say, hey, how does my budget inform those first three things? Is there something that I can give up? Like, what am I flexible on? What's important to me? And it's going to be really useful that you answer those first four questions first. So the questions again are location. Where on the island do I want to be? 2, where exactly in that general area do I want to be? That's the neighborhood. 3, the amenities. And then 4th, what your budget is. Because if you try to talk to people about renting a place or buying a place, you don't have that information, you're not going to be able to get a very good answer. So that's actually the fifth thing. So when I said there's 5 things that you have to think about, the first 4 are the really important foundational things. And then the fifth thing is, okay, now you know where you want to be, what you want to spend, and what kind of amenities you want. How are you going to find that place? So that's actually been the trick, and that's why I haven't been making a lot of videos lately. And it's because I've been spending a fair amount of time trying to sort that out. So I wanted to share with you where I am in the process so that you can understand how I'm going about finding these things. So I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups. In fact, we already started our own Facebook group, which will be in the show notes below, but Puerto Rico Life on Facebook is a great resource for people that are interested in learning more about Puerto Rico. But also there's a tremendous number of other Facebook groups, expat groups, X60, 22, 20 groups, things like that on Facebook that you could join, and you can utilize those resources to meet real estate professionals, realtors, real estate attorneys, or just local people that might have something for rent or something for sale. I'm seeing cars and things like that sold in these Facebook groups as well. So one thing I did is I started posting, hey, I want to live in Isla Verde and I want to find a place. Like, what do you got? Right. So I actually got quite a few people reach out to me about that. The other thing is, inside of those groups, I see people posting their things. So I always look at those. And then another source is Classificados Online. So if you're not familiar with Classificados Online and you're thinking of moving to Puerto Rico, you better get yourself familiar with that, because the existence of the MLS and things like that in Puerto Rico, they're okay. I mean, there's a couple of different options there. There's some real estate websites where people list some listings, but the reality is the majority of stuff gets thrown up on Classificados. And Classificados Online, I think of it like the Puerto Rican version of Craigslist, but with a lot more adaption. So lots and lots of people doing it. So for me, one of the things that I find frustrating about Classificados Online is that the information isn't always super good. But what it will do is it'll help you inform things like your budget, the amenities, the location, the neighborhood. You'll be able to see before you start talking to realtors or real estate professionals, real estate agents, things like that. You'll be able to see kind of like what stuff is going for. Even if it's not completely up to date, you'll be able to see what's going for. The other thing you can do on there, which I think is really useful, is you can actually like see who posted the ad. So like a lot of times you might see something that's not still available, but the person who posted it is a real estate agent or has a real estate brokerage. And then you can go to their brokerage website and see their current information, or even reach out to them and find out more information. And they might say something to you like, well, we actually just sold that place, or we just rented that place, but we have another place that's similar that you might want to consider. So that's actually going to be a really important thing. So this is how I'm going about finding them. Now, there are a few things that I have not resolved yet, since I haven't been able to find the right place for me. One is, how does one go about finding a place from the mainland that they can be confident is good? Because one thing everyone I talked to that's moved to Puerto Rico has said is that you cannot book a place, rent a place, buy a place without seeing it first. You really have to have somebody on the ground you trust, or you have to go there yourself. So some people have recommended things like, get an Airbnb for a month, and while you're there, look for stuff, and then rent a place or buy a place. Be prepared to do that sort of thing. Now, you can also find an agent that you trust and have them do a video walkthrough, and you can see the kinds of stuff that they're doing. You can get a feel for a property. But I really do think that, so I've seen some stuff online that looked pretty good, even from Google Maps and, Street View and stuff. But because I had spent some time in Puerto Rico, I knew the neighborhood a little bit better. And I said, I don't really want to be in that neighborhood. But then there are other areas that I haven't been that look amazing. Or sometimes there might be an area that looks kind of shady, but when you're actually there, you're like, actually, I'm super comfortable in this area. So I don't really think there's a substitution for visiting, and I'm preparing myself for that. As I approach these last couple of months before I make my move official, I'm thinking I need to spend some time on the island. So it's an expense. Yeah, I mean, it costs money. I got to fly back and forth. I got to pay for hotels or Airbnbs. I got to deal with all of the COVID restrictions for traveling. But, all of that stuff is just a sort of a cost of doing business. If you want to move to Puerto Rico, you're going to have to spend some time. And another thing, too, and this is just a little bonus thought, is I'm trying to be really flexible. So I said at the beginning, I would like to live on the ocean. But, if I was 5 minutes away from the ocean, it's probably fine. If I can see the ocean, that's better. But what if I have a building that's on the beach but has a city view because I'm on the opposite side of the building? Am I okay with that? Well, maybe, right? And so I'm trying to come up with a metric in my mind, like how much more would I pay for an ocean view? Is it $50 a month more, or is it $500 a month more? If that makes a difference, right? Another thing to think about is how many bedrooms do you want? I would like 2 bedrooms so I can have guests. I'd be okay with 3. But I might be okay with 1 too. I don't have to have a space for guests. If I save $500 or $1,000 a month, let's say, I can buy a lot of hotel rooms. I mean, if I have a guest come once every 2 months for a week, I could say, hey, you know what, I'll put you up in a hotel for a week. And maybe that's the same deal for me, and by getting a better location at a better price, by having a smaller property. Or I might just say, hey, you're on your own. If you want to come see me, it's great. I'll pick you up at the airport. We'll drive you around, whatever. But I really don't have room in my place, or you got to sleep on the couch if it's a friend, something like that. So that flexibility is going to be really helpful. There are some things that you're going to be inflexible about. For me, I need to be able to take my dog with. She's 10 years old. She's never lived with anyone but us since she was 6 weeks old. I'm not going to leave my dog or give up my dog, right? She's a 14-pound dog. She's not like a giant dog, but if a building doesn't allow pets, then that building's not for me. If a rental doesn't allow pets, it's not for me. That's a non-negotiable thing. But I can be flexible on other stuff like the neighborhood, or or maybe the number of bedrooms, or whether it's furnished or not. Because that's another thing you really can think about in the amenities section is, is the building equipped? Does it come with all of the appliances, or do you have to provide your own? How new are those appliances? Is the unit furnished if you're renting? Does it come with beds and couches and such like that? How turnkey is it? So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about. And, as I resolve them, I'll certainly let you know. And I'm excited to be able to show you whatever place that I get. But anyway, so regardless, thank you so much for watching the video. If you stuck around to the end, I really, really appreciate it. Obviously, this stuff helps my algorithm a lot if you watch the videos. Also, like the videos, comment on the videos, things like that. means a tremendous amount to me. And if you would share it in Facebook, or wherever else that you share videos, that would be awesome as well. Anyway, if you have not yet joined the Facebook group, you should definitely do so. It is in the comments below, but it is called Puerto Rico Life. I think we have about 100 people already, which is amazing since I just started the Facebook group, and I'm loving the interaction in there. You can ask questions about Puerto Rico. You can talk about Puerto Rico. You can, if you live in Puerto Rico, you can share stuff about Puerto Rico. Heck, if you have a rental, you can share it with me in there. You can say, hey, I saw your video, Jeff, and I've got a place in Isla Verde, and here's the details. Who knows? It's a great way to interact with me, Mr. Puerto Rico Life, if you will. That's the first time I referred to myself that way. But Mrs. Puerto Rico Life, she interacts in there as well. So you can interact with Becky, and also all the other people that I know that have an interest in Puerto Rico. So, and people that I don't know that have joined just from the video I did about it earlier. But anyway, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into this video, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and don't forget to live the best version of your last life ever. That's what we say on my channel, The Last Life Ever, which you can follow somewhere. It's going to be in the comments for sure, but hopefully I can figure out a way to tag it right in the video so you can check out Last Life Ever as well. Last Life Ever is an amazing platform where my partner Jillian Sidoti and I interview people doing just amazing things and living this really cool, exciting, and adventurous life. And we use that to inspire us to live a better life and to inspire other people to live a better life. So I highly recommend you check that out as well. And if you do, make sure to comment below telling me you did, because it would mean a lot to me. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye now.